Welcome to the Black Excellence Club podcast, Paul. I really do appreciate you opening up some time in your schedule for this. And let's just start by you introducing yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Security. I'm Paul Faronbi. I'm a coach and speaker specializing in leadership and personal growth. Do a lot of business and career coaching. It's my primary focus, but I also do some life coaching as well. And then on the career side, I have different workshops I do in resumes and interviewing and just overall job search process. And I do a lot of stuff on the leadership side where it's speaking or different trainings as well.
Okay. So what's your backstory? Like, where did you start?
Where did I start? That's a good question. So my background, my degree is actually in chemical engineering, which has nothing to do with speaking or coaching, any of that stuff. But
Okay.
I always had a passion for learning. And I guess I was one of those people growing up, people are like, you're kind of like a natural leader. You should do more of that stuff. And for the longest time, I kind of brushed it off and said, nah, I don't think I should be doing that stuff. I don't feel like doing it. But I didn't really lean into it until really when I was in college. I got to mentor some students in the lab I worked in. I got to work with different student organizations and just helped a lot of people. But it wasn't until just a couple of years ago, through the pandemic, really, that I was like trying to do this as an actual business instead of just doing it for fun or just casually.
Okay. So you said you started taking it serious throughout the pandemic. What
Yeah.
made you want to start taking it serious? Like, what was the factor behind that?
Yeah, so I would say it was a lot of different things, but one thing that probably stuck out to me is one organization that I help. So I have a nonprofit that helps with those who are underrepresented in STEM, so helps with different workshops and things and gives them mentors. And one of the faculty I was working with was talking about all the stuff I had been doing and said that I should probably make a business out of it. I was like the beginning of 2020, January 2020. I didn't really think much of it. I was working full time at Nestle Purina, actually still working full time Nestle Purina. And I was like, I don't know if I have time to actually make this into a business. But the pandemic hit, things slowed down, and I just got to work.
Okay. So you said you work for a nonprofit called STEM. What is that?
NALA STEM, so it's the National Alliance leading the acceleration of science, technology, engineering, and math. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So really,
Okay.
so just trying to help really focus on people who are usually marginalized or underrepresented in STEM. So whether it's by gender or by your uh, like like where you grew up, or just people who don't necessarily go into STEM. We're just trying to help them, give them the right resources and things like that, so that they can feel comfortable and feel like they belong in STEM, because they do belong in STEM, and we need more minorities in STEM.
Okay. And that's based around your major, correct? Because you say you did engineering.
Yeah, so that is based on my major, engineering, part of STEM.
Okay. So what made you decide to study engineering?
So studied engineering, I always loved math and science. But chemical engineering, if you can believe it or not, was actually a backup plan for me. Uh, the original plan was to go in as chemical engineering degree, but eventually go to med school. But when I went into chemical engineering, I started doing research. I fell in love with it, and I just stuck with it.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. I just realized I did not move my lights. Just give me 1 second. My apologies.
Oh, no worries.
I'm here wondering why it looks so dark, and then I looked and my light was looking a different direction. All right. So my next question is, so you say You said you started your own businesses around 2020. So is that when you started the coaching and the public speaking?
Yeah, so at least I had already been doing some public speaking, but not in a business form. So I would say been doing public speaking since 2016, whether it's like moderating panels or speaking to students or being on a panel. Been doing that since 2016, but as a business since 2020. And then the coaching stuff really started towards the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, as I went and got a certification through John Maxwell. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Maxwell Leadership. So it's one of the premier people in leadership. Got signed up, went through the courses, got certified in March of 21 as a Maxwell Leadership coach and speaker, and then started doing that.
Okay, nice. Um, Sorry, I have questions here. I'm just trying to stay in an order. Okay, so that has to do with the public speaking as well that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So when did you start the Incredible podcast?
Incredible podcast was beginning of this year. So I guess a lot of new stuff. So beginning of this year, January, and I've been doing it monthly so far.
Okay. What made you decide to start a podcast?
So last year, I had a blog that I was doing, and I was recording the blog, and I wrapped it up. I was really just trying to find a way for people to still get value out of what I was doing, even if they weren't at a workshop that I was at or some coaching. So I thought the blog was a good way to do it. But then I was trying to look for other opportunities. I took a break from the blog, and I looked at podcasting because I thought people don't always like to read, or they don't have time to read if they're doing other things. But when have a podcast, they can listen. They don't have to read.
Right. Okay. And when you started, were you interviewing people or was it just you?
So the first couple episodes was just me, but I always had the idea of interviewing people. I just want to kind of set the basis of like who I am and share some stories. I know the first episode I had was just about overcoming imposter syndrome. And then I talked about resilience and I went into some interviews.
Okay. So what is it like recording by yourself? Because that's something that I've been considering as like filler episodes when I can't get someone to interview. So what does that feel like? I don't know.
I would say it feels a little bit lonely at times because you're kind of talking to yourself, which normally when you do that, people think you're a little bit crazy. You're talking to yourself. But what I've done is I try to come up with a framework or kind of a rough outline of what I want to cover. So I don't want it to sound scripted or just like I'm reading something, because I did that for the blog. I was just reading. So I know I have different topics or different things I want to hit on, but I really just let it flow. And then if I need to edit it, I can edit it. But I mean, that's really how I've done it.
Okay. And did you start with video as well or just audio?
For when I record myself, I just do audio. And honestly, a lot of my episodes are really only on audio. When I do interviews with people, there's video to it as well. I haven't really been putting the video out quite yet. Just for me personally, just a lot to manage. So I'm just focusing on the audio right now. But I have the videos so I can go back and edit and post them as needed.
Okay. That's nice. That's interesting that you started that way. Because I was literally thinking that just the other day. Because I'm just like, sometimes it's hard to fit people into the schedule, or it's just like a gap when no one wants to be a part of the podcast. So it's definitely something that I was thinking about. And if I were to do it, it'd be like about why I created the podcast type thing and just go into that. But
yeah.
All right. So is Incredible a business and then you have another business, or is that just one business?
So I would say it's one business with a few different things inside the business. if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So what's the top business then that holds everything
The
else?
top business is definitely the speaking part of it. So I actually just got back from a conference I spoke at in Indiana. And then coaching is a big part of it. And then the podcast as well. So those are the top three. And then kind of, I don't really say it's a primary business at all. It's just something for people to support the podcast. Because for me personally, I would like to keep my podcast free, but it's, I mean, it's not the best business model. So the way to counteract that, what I just launched is just to have branded clothing. So like what I'm wearing now in Credital.
Mhm.
So I had it for myself, just because I wanted to wear my stuff, but people had asked me about it. So I just launched a shop literally on Monday so that people
Oh,
can
that's
pick,
what's up.
yeah, so people can pick stuff up. So there's a lot of stuff like t-shirts, hoodies, water bottles, mugs, pretty much anything you want. So there's different logos. Like you see this, there's this one and another one for the mobile one. And you just get to pick and
Okay.
choose what you want. And I think it's a good way to support it, and you get a benefit as well.
It's I love that you just said that because I have been thinking like how can I monetize my podcast as
Mm-hmm.
well. So it's like I know I can sell ad space, but it's like how do I really reach out people to put ads into my podcast? And
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, let's just start with merchandise because everyone will buy a hoodie and a t-shirt to support.
Yeah,
So I'm in the process of getting quotes for that, and then I'll go from there once I get the quotes. Otherwise, my website and everything is ready to go. It's just need the product now. So
yeah. There you go.
definitely, I agree with you on that. But what would be some other ways you would consider monetizing the podcast other than merchandise?
That's probably the one I'm focused on right now. I mean, ultimately, if I really wanted to, it could be selling ad space. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right now, I don't know. I feel like I like to look at things from my viewpoint, and I don't like ads if I don't have to have ads. Like when I'm listening to something, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like them. I mean, if I like the podcast enough, I'm going to keep listening to it regardless. So
True.
like short term, the focus is just the merchandise because that literally just launched on Monday. Long term, there might be some ads, but I know it's not just going to be a free for all. I want to have ads of stuff that I actually believe in or that I use. I don't want to just pick the first person that
Mm-hmm.
sponsors me, even though I don't care about the product or actually use it.
Right. I totally agree with that. So with your podcast, you have an intro song or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What was the process behind thinking of that and getting that implemented?
So I did not create the my podcast intro. So
Okay.
I know my limits. And that's something I'm learning through the business is just focus on the core business. And that's part of the reason, like even with the shop, I have it there. Um, and what I'm using a third party that's really managing all the services and all that stuff. I just really
Okay.
have the logo. So I'm really focusing on like the speaking, the coaching, and the podcast aspect of things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I have a friend that does voiceover stuff, and he had a promotion on having people create a podcast intro last year. So I was thinking about launching a podcast, and that was really what forced me to do it. Because like when you're trying to do something, but you just need that extra push. So what I ended up doing is I told him like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to talk about leadership and growth. I'll be talking. I'll have some interviews. Can you create something for me? I'll pay you for it. And so I had him create it before I even made my first episode. So with that, I'm like, all right, I already paid for an intro. I have to make a podcast now.
Exactly. That's awesome because that's something that I'm starting to think about now. Like, is an intro important? If I do, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna get it from? Like different things like that. So it's interesting that you had that before you did anything else. That's what gave you the push to just nope. We're starting a podcast.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's pretty cool.
And I know there's a lot of different options for like I just went with him because I knew him personally. I have another friend that has a podcast and he just found someone on Fiverr and it's a pretty short intro. I think I want to say it's like 10 seconds. Mine's a little bit longer. At some point, I might shorten it, but I just pretty much use what he created. It was the intro
Okay.
and the outro he created, so I use
Yes.
both of
Yeah, I
those.
heard that too.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. So I'm sorry. I've pretty much gone through the questions without asking them. How do you compete with other people who are selling the same or similar services that you are? So the public speaking and the coaching.
Yeah, I would say I don't really compete with them. I just bring my authentic self. And so I feel like I have a niche and it's in what I do because a lot of people that speak don't necessarily have engineering or STEM backgrounds. I think the first thing people think of is when they see an engineer, someone who's behind the scenes that doesn't like people, is not a people person. And people are
Right.
usually surprised when they find out I'm an engineer because, like, you're not like most engineers. But I'm like, I think I know more engineers than you, and engineers are not all like that. But I understand the stereotype anyway. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
niche is there. And even some of the stuff I've been doing with the nonprofit I've been working with and some of those universities that they know me and they know the services that I provided for a while for free. And now what I am doing with the nonprofit with is helping them have a resource pool to tap into for different workshops and speakings and things like that. Because they're always looking to try and bring alumni back and they didn't really have a good way to manage that, but I'm actively managing it for them. And so they see the value of
Okay.
that. Or I have
Okay.
a team that
Yes.
manages. I can't say I do it by myself. So.
It's nothing wrong with setting up things so that you have more free time, you know?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
definitely good. So what is your full-time job?
Full time job is I'm a senior process engineer at Nestle Purina. So think of like the dog and cat food.
Okay. All right. And everything else you just do on the side, I'm assuming. Like everyone.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
like me. So I'm sorry, I'm just off my game right now.
You're good.
So you just said you just finished a public speaking event. Where was that? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it. It was
Okay.
at Indiana University, so in Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay, that I don't know where Indiana is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm from Bermuda, in case you did not know. So I'm not stateside. So
Yeah,
what
it's
did?
just in the middle of the country. It's what you
Okay,
consider a flyover state.
okay. I'm definitely heard of it, just never been there.
Yeah,
So what did you speak about when you was there?
yeah. So I spoke about resilience and how to actually develop resilience. Just from my experiences, I just thought it was a good opportunity for the students because I knew when I was in their shoes, there's a lot of times you feel like you're not going to make it, you don't necessarily know how to make it. So I just shared some practical steps.
Okay. Can you talk about any of your other previous speaking engagements, like what you spoke about, where they were?
Yeah, for the most part, like I had a keynote earlier this year. I just really just sharing my story. It really depends on where it is. It's sharing my story or maybe different aspects of my story. So like the keynote I did back in February was, excuse me, for it was virtual, but it was for New York City. But New York City was still kind of locked down earlier this year, so I had to do it virtually. Uh, and it's still for a group that's underrepresented in STEM. So I wanted to share about leadership and kind of like the experiences I've had with the different internships I've done and different opportunities I've been able to do, as well as with different organizations, whether it's like helping to start a new organization while I was at Iowa State or being a part of different research experiences, mentoring different students, going to different conferences, doing co-ops, even like full-time experiences as well. But I shared my story, but I shared like a little bit about what leadership is. I said Leadership is just influence. It's nothing
Hmm.
more, nothing less. And leadership is not really a title. There are leadership positions, but people can be in those positions and not be leaders.
Most definitely. Okay. So, what would you say your target audience is for when you do your public speaking?
It depends on where it is. I've been doing a lot of stuff I've been doing as has been in STEM, so it's been students. But when I do the coaching, is more so on the career and business side, so more on the professional side.
Okay. And how do you book these speaking engagements? Do people reach out to you or do you reach out to them?
It's a little of both. So the one in New York, they reached out to me. The one for this Indiana one, there was I knew they had a conference, and you can submit proposals, and I submitted a proposal
Right.
for this, and so I was accepted and spoke at it.
Okay. Nice. All right. So let's talk about the coaching. When did you become like a business coach?
When did I become one? I would say towards the end of last year. What I would say toward the end of last year that I was certified as a coach. I was doing it before for free with some people just
Hmm.
because based on the background I had and people saw that I had been somewhat successful in my career, but then actually went through a process of learning what coaching is and coaching strategies was when I got certified in March of 21.
Okay. And how do you like book clients? Like do you have a pitch? Do people just come to you? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's mostly people come to me, and it really just depends on what my schedule is. Like I said, I work full time, so I can only take on so many clients, and so that's part
Hmm.
of the reason I haven't advertised too much. But I'm trying to shift and make more time for it next year because I know if I start to advertise, I will get too much of an influx that I could actually take.
Hmm.
So it's really as people reach out to me, and I post a lot on LinkedIn. I try to post every weekday about different things, and people are interested in coaching. A lot of the stuff I do is more has been on the career side. There are a few people I've helped on the business side as well. Just because what a lot of people don't realize coaching is, or what it's based on, it's really based on the coaching relationship. So a coach really shouldn't be telling you what to do. They're really unlocking what's already within you. If you're telling you
Hmm.
what to do, that's consulting. Or if you're trying to look up to someone, that's mentoring. But coaching is really asking thought-provoking questions and really listening in and understanding what you're saying. Because oftentimes when you're talking, you may not necessarily be listening to yourself, and then also holding you accountable as well. Because at the end of the day, when you have a client, the client is responsible for whether or not they do what they say you're going to do. I can't force anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's kind of funny, but it's just the way coaching is. The less you know about a topic, the better it goes. Because if you know about a topic, there's a tendency to try and input your own ideas, and those might
Hmm.
not be the ideas or what is best for that person. And so you're less likely to listen and really understand what's going on and what's best. Um, so yeah.
Okay. So what are you open to discuss your rates for coaching or no?
Um, Yeah, I can discuss rates. I mean, it's not always forever. I would say coaching isn't cheap, but we can discuss
Hmm.
rates.
So do you have like different levels of coaching, like beginner, intermediate type of thing or no?
Not really. So I have different coaching, like if it's more on the career side or on the business side, and really if it's more so if it's a student versus a professional. But
Okay.
for the most part, I think there's only really one student I've coached. Most of the time, it's just been mentorship. And I feel like for the most part, when you're a student, and it's not for everyone, you're still learning a lot. Not to say that a good mentor can't have some coaching aspects to it. I think
Hmm.
the coaching process is really powerful. But I think coaching is more for people who have at least a certain amount of life experiences already, and they kind of know a general idea of what they're trying to do. And so that's the way I look at it.
Okay. So do they pay on like a monthly basis, annual basis, one time fee? Is it a
So
certain amount of time?
yeah. So two different options. They can do a monthly, and so there's two different sessions. So they're bi-weekly. So reason for that is so we actually give time to accomplish stuff. If you do weekly,
Right.
the stuff might come up, and they might actually be able to accomplish what they said they're going to accomplish. Um,
Hmm.
so two sessions per month, an hour and a half for a month, and then you can pay per month or you can pay for the duration. I usually say, like, to get results from coaching, usually takes about 3 months. It could happen quicker, but say it takes at least 3 months. You can pay for an entire year, but most people don't do that. I think what I've seen, it's supposed to be like 3 or 4 months, and then people go like month to month after that.
Right. Okay, that's interesting that you said it generally takes 3 months to achieve what you've been trying to do just by a little bit of help. So I feel like it's really interesting that you said that because um I just feel like I know what I'm doing, but I just need the extra. You know what you're doing, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Like the accountability aspect of it. So, and I noticed that at the beginning of the year. So I did try and get an accountability partner.
Mhm.
This is someone that's basically trying to do similar things as me, and they just fell off. So it's like I fell
Oh,
off because now my accountability partner is not there. So
yeah,
I'm in the process of trying to find a new accountability partner that's in the same realm.
yeah,
I think I have found someone,
good.
same age range, not necessarily same business aspects, but same mental aspects, like same
Yeah.
goals, overall goals type thing.
Mhm.
So I was like, hey, are you interested in and having an accountability partner? We can check in every week. Maybe meet up once a month, twice a month, just to see
Mhm.
where we're going in life, what's stopping us,
Mhm.
and going forward from that. So it's just the first week. So hopefully this one lasts for the rest of the year. I really think he will because he's more there with like we're still. I feel like we're more on the same headspace level, like thought
Okay,
process type
good.
thing than the last person. But I'm learning that accountability is most definitely necessary.
Yeah.
All right, I got a few more questions. When did you join the morning meetup?
It was, I think it was beginning of July.
Okay, so you joined around the same time as I did.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I went to the Black Equity Con in June that Dave had, and a
Nice.
lot of people were asking like, "Oh, well, why aren't you a part of the morning meetup? Why aren't you?" It's like, you know what? That's a great question. I do not know why I am not.
Yeah.
So I made it I was like, nope, I need to join it by the end of June. So I literally started like my first day was July 1st. So yeah. How would you say it's helped you since you've joined?
It's helped a ton. It helped a lot more than I thought it would. At first, I really just joined to have the community of like-minded people, which was funny that things come to you when you actually want them or when you're ready
Hmm.
for them. They don't just come when well, they could come when you don't need it, but you don't recognize it. And so I'd been looking because before I wasn't paying as much attention to my side businesses as I should have been. I was just like, whatever. So I was like, to do better and to be more motivated, I should probably be around entrepreneurs who are actually going after it. Because a lot of the people around me, they're not entrepreneurs. They don't really care. They're like, you have your
Yep.
day job, that's fine. You make a good livable wage. I don't have to have a side business by any means. So I found it, and then I didn't join it at first because I had heard it a few times and following David Shands on Instagram probably for a couple of years actually, and I've been
Okay.
seeing it for a while, but it never really clicked. And then finally, I listened to a podcast. I finally listened to his Sleep for Sucker podcast, and I think it was the one he was talking to. I forgot his name. I think it's Carlton Dennis. He was talking about
Yeah,
real
that one
estate.
was recent. The Carlton
Yeah,
Dennis one was well, it came
yeah.
out recently. Yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about like how to leverage the tax game and how he works with millionaires and all this stuff. And then on the podcast, it came up about the morning meetup. And then for whatever reason, that was just like the final straw. I was like, okay, I'm just going to join because I think this is what I've been asking for, but I hadn't actually recognized it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I joined, and just the different strategies he shares, like especially on the social media aspect, I was able to clean up a lot of stuff because I realized that I wasn't actively sharing the stuff I was doing. And I know like sometimes they'll ask people like, are you embarrassed of your business? I'm like, I'm not embarrassed of my business, but I don't share enough about it or even
Mm-hmm.
about the podcast itself. Like I had been having fun on the podcast, but I would share like maybe once when the podcast was dropped, and that was it. And it was drops only monthly, so like once a month. So just learn different strategies of like what your social media page looks like, different things. Like even one thing that stuck out to me is like you have a podcast. Like if you have different services, you can advertise your services on there. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I not doing that? There's plenty of other services I do with the coaching. So I made a commercial for my coaching, put that on there. So just
Yes,
little
I think
things
I
like,
heard that. Yeah.
yeah. So little things like that have been helping, and a lot of people that come on or even be able to connect with you through. I sent a message about wanting to ramp up from monthly and seeing if anyone would be interested in doing a podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
got you sent me a message. Several other people sent me messages, and then I'm
Okay.
currently in the progress of trademarking Incredible. I found someone through the morning meetup to help me with that. So it's been super
Nice.
helpful.
That's awesome. Cause like I'm gonna say I've been listening to Dave's podcast since 2020, and like I hear him say, "Oh, the morning meetup this, the morning meetup that." Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, it's not for me right now. It's not for me
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
And then I feel like he publicized his goal in like the beginning of January of trying to get like 1 million people or something like that into the
yeah,
morning meetup. So I'm just like, I see what you're doing there. And then in each episode, each podcast episode, there's an ad. There's an ad. There's an ad.
yeah,
So every time he drops an episode, I'm hearing it now. So I
yeah,
was like, so that's why I said, let me do Black Equity Con. Like I literally just said, look, I reasoned myself. If we do Black Equity Con and we like it, we meet people, then there's no reason why you can't join.
yeah,
And then while I was there, half the people were from like in the morning meetup. They're like, well, why aren't you in the morning meetup? You came here, like you flew all the way from Bermuda to Miami to do this, but you can't just sign on to something that you could do in your own home. So it's like, you guys are right. I got you covered. I'm here now. That's all that matters.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's definitely interesting. Like it is working for networking and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can like because I'm getting ready. Like I'm taking a vacation in November, but I'm just like, well, if I'm traveling, I might as well try and record some podcast episodes in different states. So in each
Nice.
state, I'm trying to find someone that can assist me with being a guest, help me find guests and help me find a location to record. So so far I have two people that I've met from the Black Equity Con or from the morning meetup that's willing to assist. So
Awesome.
it's definitely working and it's definitely pushing me forward. It's giving me exactly what I needed, which
That's
is
awesome.
awesome. All right, so I'm gonna go through the last couple questions. These are questions that I asked to close up each episode.
Okay.
First one being is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to discuss?
Not that I can think of. I think you're pretty thorough with the questions you asked. Good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. What advice would you give to 18-year-old you about what you're pursuing and doing now on the entrepreneurship side? Over.
So 18-year-old me did not even really ever consider being an entrepreneur because 18-year-old me was thinking about becoming a doctor. So I would
So how?
tell 18, the what?
I was gonna say, how did you go from a doctor to engineering? That's like completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty different. Well, like I said, engineering was a backup. And then it
Okay.
was more, yeah, it was backup. Because because I'd gone through like different college visits, and I was always saying like I'm going to be pre med, and they're like pre med's not a major, like you have to make a major. I was like, all right, biology then, because that's what everyone does. And then finally, I just randomly had a conversation with my dad. He was like, for whatever reason, like you don't go to med school. Do you want to be a biologist? I was like, nah, I don't. So I was like, all right. I probably wanted to be an engineer if I wasn't a doctor. And I was like, I'll pick chemical engineering because I like chemistry. And that's really how that came about.
Okay, that's awesome.
But I would tell 18-year-old me to just embrace the unknown because the unknown is a scary but also a really exciting time because you get to experience things that you may or may not realize may lead you to where you want to be. So like even with a lot of stuff in engineering, even how I ended up working for Purina full time is just trying different things and discovering what I liked. And even entrepreneurship stuff, it probably all stemmed from the stuff I was doing in student organizations, helping with being like a treasurer or like VP or different, or just starting an organization and building those people skills and building communication skills early on, which I didn't really realize what I was doing. It's just, oh, I'm just
Hmm.
building this so I can get a job later on, have some leadership skills to put on a resume, but not knowing that that could help me with my entrepreneurship journey as well.
Okay. What advice would you give to our listeners on entrepreneurship and being an engineer?
To like people who are engineers and that want to be entrepreneurs, or just in general?
Just in general.
In general, I would
Or you could do
say
them separately if you want. Sorry. Or you could do them separately if you want, like entrepreneurship and then engineering. It's completely up to you.
yeah, I would say like I can do them together. I think that really like entrepreneurship is for anyone. Like a lot of times I would think like engineers don't do that. Like we help solve problems and we do this. We work for different companies. We don't become entrepreneurs. But as I've done this and I realize that a lot of engineers are doing, there's a lot of engineers and not in the same exact space, but are going back, trying to give back or help with professional development, sort of thing. So I would say just go for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be what was your core focus. Like if you went to college, it doesn't have to be your major. But I think it's just if it's something you're passionate, go out there and start learning about it. I know for me personally, I've been reading a lot of books the last few years, especially since I got out of college, and the last 3 years especially been intentional about how many books I'm reading every year. And so whether it's books or podcasts or different videos on YouTube, there's so many resources at your disposal that you don't even necessarily have to pay for, especially with books. You can just borrow from the library. So don't let not knowing stop you from going after it. Learn from your mistakes. And I always say that mistakes are inevitable. There's no one that's successful that has not failed before. And if they've
Mhm.
never failed, then they probably have never done anything. So just keep that in mind and just go out there and be great.
Okay. You mentioned being intentional about the amount of books that you read per year. What is your goals for reading?
So last year it was 2 books a month, and I think so it's 24 books. I ended up reading 27 books, and then
Okay.
this year's 30 books. And right, no, this year is 30. it's 3 books a month, so it's 36, and right now I'm
Okay.
at 27.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a fast reader?
I consider myself an above average reader. I don't know about fast reader.
Okay. Cause like, yeah, my goal this year is to read 24 books. I shouldn't say was because the year's not done yet. But I find that I have periods of times where it's just like I just can't. Like I just can't read just because I'm not in the headspace to take in the
Mhm.
information.
Yeah,
So do you ever suffer from that? Like not being in the headspace to take in the information that you're reading? Or you
yeah.
just push
I
through
would
it?
say audiobooks count. So I would say
Okay.
the majority of my books. So like I've probably been doing more audiobooks this year. So out of 27 I've read, maybe I think 4 or 5 were audiobooks. And then last year I think there was like 2 or 3 that are audiobooks. So I think that still counts. So sometimes like and sometimes I'm reading multiple books at the same time. Not necessarily because it's what I chose, but like I know like in the morning meetup we're reading a book, and then I was already book I was reading, and then I do some masterminds, and there's a book I was reading for that. So I just try and read a chapter of each a day. But then when I'm not reading multiple books, I can go ham and read multiple chapters in a day.
Right. Okay. I like that you are using like the other places for books as well. Like you said, you're a part of the Morning Meetup Book Club and then the mastermind. So that's interesting that you do that because I was thinking about joining it. I'm just like the books that I'm trying to read right now are hard enough. Why would I add more into the mix? Like that's just my mindset right now.
Yeah.
And then also in Bermuda is also getting the book. Sometimes it may be a little difficult or I won't come in
Okay.
on time. So there's also that factor as well. But I think whenever they restart there, I haven't even looked to see when they start at number one again. But when they start at number one again is when I really will try and take part in that book club. Not just try and get all the books at once. That way I have them. 'Cause I'm not even sure if they list them all out, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they just, at least from what I saw, they just list the next couple. So I'm actually not reading the current book. I read the last two. Or I finished, yeah, it was the last two. I guess we did read 2 books because one of them was really short. The current book I was kind of
It's the
iffy
E
about.
Myth, right?
The E
It's
Myth, yeah.
The E Myth that they're reading now, yeah.
Yeah, they're reading
So
right now. Yeah.
okay. So do you intend on reading the next book or not sure
Yeah.
yet? Yeah. Okay. Do you know the name of it?
I don't know if they've said it yet. And if they have, I haven't seen it.
Okay. I wasn't sure either. That's why I asked. I was like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. But yeah, for me it's just like I don't know how far in advance they list it, but when I hear it, it's just like, well, you're already starting the book tomorrow, so I can't, I'll be behind either way. So once they start the new calendar year for that, I'll definitely get in on it. Um, so what's next for you and Incredible?
Really focusing on the podcast more. I'm really, because I want to just develop uh, like a library of content. And I realized there's a lot of stuff I've done, but fortunately with COVID, not well, because COVID and virtual, it's been able to be recorded. But as I'm doing more stuff in person, it's not like I have a lot. I don't have a camera crew or anything like that, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not as easy to record everything. I mean, fortunately, when I do bigger events like this conference, it's recorded for me. I can just ask for it. But like the smaller stuff
Okay.
doesn't get recorded unless I get it recorded, or even like a mastermind. Some of that stuff doesn't get recorded unless it's on online. So just building more of library with the podcast, and that's ramping up, doing more episodes. I always try and take steps and not just jump, because at first I was just going to jump to weekly, but I'm at monthly, so I'll probably go to bi-monthly first. But target is to
Okay.
get to weekly by the middle of next year.
Okay, that's awesome. So what I did, okay, again, this is where Black Equity Con came in. It gave me
Yeah.
that push that I needed. I restarted recording my podcast in January of 2022. And I
Nice.
wrapped up 11, 12 episodes by March, and I did nothing with it. Just sitting there on my hard drive, doing absolutely nothing. So by the time I went to the Black Equity Con, everyone's like, "Oh well, where's your podcast? You say you started a podcast, but why isn't it out there?" So,
Mm.
that's what gave me the push to actually
Yeah.
launch the podcast. So I am doing weekly, but I also had that buffer. Like I had 3 months worth
Oh,
of
okay.
content.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm recording now because it ends in I think what the end of October. I officially launched in August, so I have
Hmm.
3 months. So up until the end of October, I think that I have. So now I'm starting to record so I can get up to the end of the year,
Okay.
and
Nice.
then when I travel in November, if I can get my goal is to get four episodes in each place that I go. So right now I'm only going to two places, so that's 8 episodes. That's 2 months worth of content, you know. So it's
Nice.
just yeah, having that buffer does help
Hmm.
because it's now October and I'm just starting to record again, which is bad on my end, but
Happens.
it's very bad on my end. But it's also just been hard to get people to commit, like if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To scheduling the time and
Hmm.
making sure times align and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I'm starting to do what Dave does in the aspect of these are my dates. You come, can you do it? Yes or no type thing, and that's
Hmm.
what it is. So I think I have like 6 dates for the month of October, and
Nice.
if you come, you come. I hope you can, so I don't have to do episodes by myself, but just go from there.
Yeah.
Really. So what's next for your coaching and your public speaking? Like, what do you see happening next for that?
Um, the coaching is more so to just make more time for it. So I just realized as I looked at my schedule this year, at the beginning of the year, the coaching was not the focus, the podcast was the focus.
Okay.
So, like I said, as people reach out to me, but I realize if you want to grow anything, you have to focus on it. So, really coming up with different strategies for coaching. Like I said, coaching is not necessarily the cheapest thing in the world, but at the same time, I want to value my time
Hmm.
and not just cheapen it. So, probably we'll be launching some group coaching, which is similar to coaching, and just that there's multiple people. You can rotate who's the focus every week, but that way like everyone pays a lower amount, but
Hmm.
you still get the. It's kind of like what Dave does when people do the Q&A. Like people still get
Right.
the value from it, even though they're not actually
Exactly.
asking the question.
Yeah. That actually sounds like a really good idea, especially
Yeah.
for people who may not be able to afford the one-on-one coaching.
Hmm.
I think it may even be more beneficial to have a group because whether they're doing the same thing as you or not, you're always going to remember what you learned. So if
Yeah.
you decide to change courses and go to lean towards what someone else in that group was doing, you already have the information.
Yeah.
Especially if you take in the information, that'll be dope.
Yeah.
That'll be
Thanks.
great. And for the public speaking,
Just being more intentional about opportunities. So there's some opportunities that come up, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really have time for it, or there's other stuff I want to do. But I think just really what I'm going to do at the end of the year is there's different events I know happen every year, and just mapping it out and figuring out because some is an application based, some is people reach out to you. So the ones that
hmm
are applications, making sure I'm ready for it, and I have
right?
the proposal and stuff already. Because there's different stuff I focus on. Like I've been doing the resilience stuff and the leadership, but there's some other stuff I want to do on the financial side as well. Because I think that's another key piece. So just developing stuff ahead of time instead of waiting for the conference or the workshop and then having to come up with something real quick.
Okay. Ooh, sorry. What would you say to your future self 5 years from now?
My future self, I hope you're a millionaire.
I'm with you on that one. And
Yeah.
lastly, where do you see yourself and your business in 5 years' time?
Myself, my business, honestly, it's so hard with the world to try and picture where you're going to be in 5 years. Because realistically, I could say like I'm only going to be working on Incredipaul, but I also love what I do at Purina. So I don't know if I would just step away from that just
Okay.
because it just really depends on the demand and what I really want to do. So realistically, if I wanted to, I could step away from my full time role, but I love it and I love the people I do. I love the impact we have on people's pets every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's hard to say. I know in some
Okay.
aspects I will still be doing Incredible, whether or not it's still a podcast or the focus might be different, but I'm always trying to add value wherever I can.
Okay. Awesome. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for you. So, what I know you mentioned how you started your podcast or you recorded a little bit. So, what made you start the podcast in the first place, or even like start recording back in January?
Okay. So, in 2020, everyone's trying to make money or
Yeah.
figure out how to make money online. So I was like, let's try and make money off an Instagram page. And
Mhm.
for some reason, I say it this way, I came up with the name the Black Excellence Club. And then it epically failed for me to make money off of Instagram. So I had to stop and think like, you can't somehow you came up with this name for a reason. So let's try and see why you came up with this name.
Mhm.
So it took me some time to really just stop and think like, why did I come up with the Black Excellence Club? And ultimately I came up with the Black Excellence Club because when I was trying to learn about investing, finance, real estate, things like that, I was never learning from someone that looked like me. I was always learning from a
Mhm.
white man. So I'm just like, how about we try and bridge that gap?
Mhm.
And create a platform where people that look like me can come and give information as well as learn it.
Mhm.
And the easiest way to possibly get that information out at first is a podcast.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I actually recorded 2 episodes in 2020. I actually got 2 people so that's how I got 12. So I recorded 10 and then I'm just like, I have these, so might as well use them.
Yeah.
And then I got 2 people to agree. And then after that, it was like no one else that wanted to do it. So I'm just like, wow, I can't launch with just 2 episodes. That's not going to work. So I just took the rest of the time. And then finally last year, it was literally on my birthday. I was like, why are you wasting your time? Like, you're literally wasting your time. You've had this idea for more than a year now. You're not doing anything with it. What are you going to do to change that?
Mhm.
So literally on my birthday, I had my my journal and I'm writing down names of people that I know and I want to interview because they're doing something with their life. Like these are people like within my age range, people that I have known at some point in my lifetime. And that's how I started with people that I've met throughout life. And now where I am now, recording again is learning, meeting new people, networking
Mhm.
basically. And yeah, that's how I started the podcast,
That's
basically.
awesome. I like it.
All right. Um, thank you, Paul, for your time. I really
Of course.
appreciate you coming through for the Black Excellence Club podcast. Anything else you want to say before we end?
No, I think it was
No?
great. Great interview, great
Okay.
energy. I love it. Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Thank you. Thank you. And let me just stop recording.